views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to editors and writers and journalists and filmmakers and photographers and videographers and reporters and anybody who's putting stuff out. And this evening we got a great show for you. We're going to talk to a guy who puts a lot out, and you'll see what I mean in a moment, and also a Norwood News reporter. So it is my esteemed pleasure to welcome back my longtime friend and neighbor and colleague in trying to make the Bronx a healthier place. It is Steve Ritz. Nice to have you with us, Uncle Steve.
Hello, Uncle Steve. That's great. Hello, Gary. Mwah. Besos to you, brother, man.
Nice to see you. For folks who don't know, Steve is the founder of Green Bronx Machine. He's a purveyor of all things positive in the Bronx. He's got a brand new film, I guess that's out. We're going to find out all about that, called Generation Growth. But Steve, is that the latest and most recent thing that you have been working on?
Well, Generation Growth is a film that just debuted. It swept awards at the Heartland Film Festival and is really sweeping people's hearts and minds everywhere. So I'm super excited about that. But you know, Gary, I like to keep it local. And talking about all things local, last week, Green Bronx Machine celebrated 100,000 pounds of food delivered door to door to the most vulnerable families and seniors with cancer in our borough. So I take great pride in that.
For folks who don't know, why don't you tell them, because you don't have to tell me, because we've been down this road, down this Bronx street. Tell me what is and who is Green Bronx Machine?
So Green Bronx Machine is a local nonprofit organization, and we are a very atypical nonprofit organization that literally started right up the block from Gary and is now touching 50,000 students in 20 states and 5 nations internationally. But most importantly, right here in our beautiful classroom, 4 stories up in the middle of public housing, we grow vegetables, our vegetables grow students, our students grow schools, and our schools grow happy, healthy, resilient communities.
When you go into a school and you say to kids, hey, we're going to eat different from what you've been eating. We're going to do something that you have never seen before. We're going to grow something. We're going to, change a lot of things. What's the reaction? The kids receptive?
Well, I never say it just like that.
Well, that's why you do what you do.
That's why I do what I do. I'm an educator. It's smoke and mirrors. If, listen, parents aren't keeping their best kids at home. They're sending them to school daily, and it's our job to meet them where they're at. But, over the weekend, we had a world premiere online across the nation, and all of my students chimed in, and they were in the chat box saying, Mr. Ritz, you really tricked us into learning how to read and write. We thought our job was to grow vegetables. And that's really, when you get these children at a young, tender age, and you put them on a trajectory of good health and good education, everything changes.
We talk about those values on this program and frankly, everywhere I go, in person or on Bronx Talk. It's like, I'll give you an old line. They asked the Beatles many years ago, when are you going to do anti-war songs? And they said, all our songs are anti-war. Everything we do is about, certainly what I do, and I know what you do, is about being healthy, doing better in the Bronx. Economic development means healthy. I mean, there's a whole range of things. And so when I saw the trailer for Generation Growth, I have watched that thing, I can't even tell you how many times, because it makes me feel great, because the kids get it, and of course they get it, and they become healthier and they become smarter. So we're going to take a look. Are you ready? You're ready to roll tape?
Listen, I'm ready. I'm ready whenever you are. Wait till I tell you what's happened since.
All right. So now we're going to roll the trailer, and then we'll do what's happened since. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. And then we're going to talk about the film and then what's happened since. Generation Growth from the Green Bronx Machine.
I'm planting cucumbers.
I'm planting basil.
Me too. I'm planting basil.
Do you like basil?
I've never had it.
Hello? Good morning, good morning. You go in my classroom and you ask children where do they get their food. They say the gas station, the drugstore. That's appalling to me that children are shopping for food in a drugstore. We're seeing all kinds of health anomalies in communities of poverty.
You got the bodegas with 5 different types of pork rinds, but no fresh fruit.
There's a strong linkage between having poor diet, having poor health outcomes, and then that's just affecting your quality of life across so many different dimensions.
Zip code and skin color should not determine outcomes in life. I'm out to change that. Hello, Toledo! How many of you would be excited about having a tower garden in your school? I had this vision. I could teach children if I put this magical garden in the middle of a classroom and built school around it.
Stephen Ritz and his Green Bronx Machine are opening young minds to science, nutrition, and wellness.
When you cultivate a palate, you are changing the trajectory of those children's lives and taste buds forever. You like the lettuce?
Yeah, I like the lettuce.
For me, the greatest resource in the world is the untapped potential in communities like mine.
Parents are sending us their best kids. They're not keeping the good ones at home.
Can you put the chair down? Can you put your arms through your shirt? Maybe that'll help bring some brain power.
I hope my son can see past the hood. When he comes home, he tells me about the garden or what he's tried and what we should try. He has 1,000,001 suggestions.
What's happening in the inner city and beyond, a lot of that has to do with food, period.
Children want to be engaged and involved in something. So sometimes you gotta pull a little magic out of the hat.
You can hug it, but not too tight.
My favorite subject is science. I'm a quick thinker. Look at mine right now. Look at mine.
How did you do today?
Good.
All right, boy.
I'm exhausted. I'm emotionally depleted. But my heart is full.
Oh my God.
Once you see it the first time, you're inspired. But the fact that you keep seeing it over and over again, how lives are being changed, then you're motivated. Something special is happening here.
This is how change happens. Access to healthy food, one person, one community at a time.
You can't rush growth. You can't go from seed to harvest without care and cultivation in the middle.
There it is. Green Bronx Machine and Generation Growth. It is so inspirational. So tell me about, so this is really the trailer of a full-length film? I mean, what is
This is a full-length 97-minute feature. And, you know, you will laugh, you will cry, you will jump for joy, you will see places and faces across the Bronx and New York City that everyone will recognize. But most importantly, I'm looking at your beautiful bookshelf behind you, Gary. This is a story from the Bronx to the world, because we have taken this program to the cornfields of Indiana, to the mountains of Appalachia. You're going to see the Green Bronx Machine in partnership with a foster care facility built the first indoor-outdoor greenhouse in the middle of the mountains that is now profitable. You're going to see us working with District 75 youth to go on and train them for jobs in culinary. You're going to see us traveling across the nation and meeting people who I would have never met before, who are all now part of our bigger and better Bronx family.
When you started, first of all, how old is Green Bronx Machine?
Well, Green Bronx Machine became, you know, recognized by the government, so to say, as an entity in about 2012. And we've been on a great, slow, steady trajectory ever since. But, you know, my work started back, you know, in 2004, when I was remarkably over 300 pounds. Remember?
I remember.
Waddling down the street, Gary? Oh, my God, eating myself sick.
And could you envision at that time when you said, okay, now I'm going to do this, that it would become this? Is this a surprise to you, or is this really what the plan was from day one?
Well, you know, let's be clear, Gary. I've been asked to work elsewhere many a time. I was also asked to graduate elsewhere many a time. So now that the state has given me a PhD, it's kind of cool for my curriculum. I get a big kick out of that. But the plan was to succeed. And make no doubt about it, they call it Formula 409 because the first 408 iterations failed. So I am nothing if not persistent and, and show up. That's half of it. You got to show up. And, I'm just determined to do something today that my future self and my future neighbors and my future children and grandchildren will thank me for. And now more than ever, it starts with schools. It starts with children. Public education is the greatest lever this nation has. So, it's redeeming, It's really redeeming.
I think that this pandemic gives us an opportunity to really take a look at the world and change in just the ways you're talking about. Like, we're going to have to change. Healthier, more natural, et cetera, is certainly the way to do it. Before the show, you told me, and I didn't fully get it yet, about something you're doing with the Chicago Blackhawks. That's the Chicago professional hockey team. Tell me what that's about and what are the implications for us here in the BX.
So what's the implications here in the BX? Let me shout out a friend of mine, a hero, Jonathan Taves, the captain of the Chicago Blackhawks. And I didn't even know about hockey. I'm still waiting for the Knicks to call me back, This is the last year I'm willing to get in shape. But Jonathan called me up. He's an incredible philanthropist. And he had been learning all about the Green Bronx Machine work that we were doing in schools. Mindful, he's an athlete who's interested in better performance. Fast forward, we're now in 60 public schools in Chicago, some of the most challenged neighborhoods you can imagine across greater Chicagoland. And we have transformed both educational outcomes and health outcomes for children who never even heard of hockey. And you go in there and guess what? It looks like the United Center on game night. Now, Jonathan, along with a bunch of other athletes across all of Chicagoland, are buying out liquor stores. And what are they doing in the most marginalized communities? They're buying out liquor stores and converting them to classrooms and community centers that look like this: epicenters of fresh food, community kitchens, farmers markets, and health, wellness, entrepreneurship, and opportunity. So I'd love to see some of our neighbors up the block and some of the local New York sports teams get involved. I recently met with Eric Adams, who took us all the way out to the Brooklyn Center, to the Barclays Center. So right here in the Bronx, I'd like to see the Yankees hit a home run and get on board with Green Bronx Machine. Bears noting that the Boston Red Sox had me keynote Fenway Park, and I got a standing ovation and let me put the Green Bronx Machine logo up on the screen. So I want to challenge the Yankees to step up, and all New York sports teams to step up and grow something greater. It is about education, not asphyxiation.
And that's what's on your shirt. Stand up.
Absolutely. Education, not asphyxiation. The air in marginalized communities is 2.5 times dirtier than it is in other parts of New York City. The life expectancy rate here is 15 years less, simply because of what we're eating and what we're breathing. And we have the ability to change that tomorrow. Realize, we put a man on the moon. We should be able to deliver good food to the neighborhood.
And good, clean air. We want to break some news here. You told me just offhand, oh, by the way, I will be running for office, and I'd like to know exactly what the heck you're talking about.
Well,
a guy with a cheese hat?
Listen, why not? There's Mayor McKees. I might as well be the big keys. But seriously, this work for me has been nothing but inspiring. And the more the more it resonates with people and the city and politicians. Realize I got to meet Mrs. Obama, and she asked me where my cheese hat was. That, philanthropy is great, and I don't want to discount that. So for everyone doing wonderful work in this borough and across the city and the nation, thank you. But policy is where it's at. And what do I mean by that? Listen, philanthropy is going to send a bunch of bottles of water to Michigan. And Lord knows those poor people need that. And we will judge the efficacy of our work based on the amount of bottles of water we send. But policy will make sure that those pipes are installed and people who poison each other will go to jail. So watch for Steve Ritz to really start advocating around policy, particularly in the Bronx, and then for some citywide initiatives that I'm pushing for that are starting to get some traction.
So you're not going to tell me yet where and when you're going to run and for what office, but you're saying it's in your
definitely in the future. I've been getting some good advice, and that's, you know, one thing that I really want to credit my dear friend, State Senator Gustavo Rivera for, who once told me that, you know, you can't drink out of a fire hose. So for me, having success after success after success in my wheelhouse just builds credibility. And I'm going to figure out when and where I am going to dip my feet into the pool to get people involved and engaged. You know, we're connecting with hundreds of thousands of people daily at Green Bronx Machine.
And
Check out the Facebook page.
You'll come back here on BronxNet, on the Buzz or Bronx Talk, and talk about that, right?
Well, I'll announce my candidacy nowhere else but right where it all started.
There you go.
Listen, Gary, you've been a fan and a supporter from day one. And you're probably one of the most incredible guys out there. I talk about you to people that you have no idea about. And if I can get Michelle on your show, she's coming. But I keep pushing. I'm trying, baby. I'm trying.
I appreciate that. So let's see, where and when can people see the full-length film?
So the film has not been released yet to the public. And there's a couple of reasons why. We are looking at how we want to release it because, you know, for me, it's always been about impact, not about income. So on one hand, I want to openly source this thing so teachers and people can have access to it all around the world. It features our curriculum, which is changing schools not only across the United States, but on other continents. So for me, it's a delicate dance, mindful. I'm going to go back to what's my focus. You know, on a day-to-day basis, I never expected to have a film. This thing went from being a series of short. I'm going to
have to cut you off. So it's coming out. You'll let us know when. And then
absolutely. You can go see the trailer on the Green Bronx Machine website. It's up on our social media, and you can reach out to me, Gary. I'm always a phone call away, and for all of you as well.
And for people in the Bronx and everywhere, of course. Right now is a very, very important time. I'm going to let you make the pitch to make sure that people go out and vote.
Listen, people, it's on you. Vote like your life depends on it. And remember this, you vote with your fork, you vote with your mouth, you vote with your wallet, but please, please, please get online and get out there and vote. You can't say you can't if you didn't do it. And the degree to which we resist injustice is the degree to which we are all free. So get out there and make epic happen.
I'm apparently out of a job. That's it. He's got it. Stephen Ritz, what a lifetime of pleasure to you. You're the absolute best.
And thanks for believing in me, Gary. Great things happen in this borough each and every day, from the Bronx to the world. And there is a Bronx in every community across America. And we are poised, ready, willing, and able to make epic happen.
We're going to take a short break. Thanks so much, Steve. You're the best. We'll take a break, and we'll be with José of the Norwood News right after this.
Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Remember, we're not just voting for president, we're also voting for local representation here in the Bronx. Vote411.org/ballot is a great resource to find out what other races are happening and who's running to represent your community. Simply enter your address, then click Show My Races. You will see a sample ballot displaying the presidential race and other local races taking place in your district. Early voting starts between October 24th to November 1st, and absentee ballots are due no later than November 3rd.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. That was a barrel of laughs, but he's very serious about what he does. Another guy who's very serious about what he does, he's an independent reporter, but many people read him in the Norwood News. It is my buddy, José Gerald. Nice to have you with us, José.
Thank you, Gary. Good to see you again.
Always good to see you. José, just a little background about you. Now, I know that you're a photographer, and we talked about having you on as a photographer, but today we'll talk about your reporting. How'd you get into this? What was your interest? A little bit so people can meet who you are. What was your background?
Well, many, many years ago, growing up in Texas, I was just unhappy in Texas, and I wanted to go somewhere exciting like New York City.
There you go.
And I had a cousin who was into photography, and he said, Jose, if you're moving to New York, you have to get a professional level camera because there's going to be so much to photograph. And that was the very
instead of just the cell phone, right?
This predates cell phones. In fact, I think you can see an old Nikon camera I have over my shoulder.
And so give me a range about how many years ago?
Oh, that was 1979.
Wow, there you go. That is a lot of years.
when I first moved to New York, and of course, film-based photography. And I ended up working in photo labs eventually. I had wanted to, of course, with these big dreams of becoming a famous photographer. It was much more competitive than I realized. But there was a lot of opportunities in labs, photo labs, developing and printing for photographers, for Estee Lauder, Calvin Klein, all sorts of, there was no shortage of darkroom work back then.
And then how did that become reporting, and even reporting here in the Bronx?
Well, as film photography died.
Set a spell, we're gonna tell a story.
I saw the writing on the wall, and I knew that it was not sustainable. There was no future in film photography. So, and I had no real interest in digital photography at the time. But I've always done writing on the side, and I did want to do something more substance, right?
Yeah.
With my writing. So I went to college, got my degree, went on to get my master's degree in journalism, and just this whole world of reporting just opened up to me.
What excites you about reporting in the Bronx and working? I know your stuff is published in a lot of places, but specifically in the Norwood News. What interests you about it? What's the motivation? What's the drive? Because it's not like you just do it as like a little hobby. You really do this.
Right. So it's exciting for me to know I'm passing information that our readers need to make informed decisions on who to vote for example, or who to reach out to if they need a traffic sign in their neighborhood. And as much as I like to deal with some of our elected officials, it's always a thrill. I get a bigger thrill when I have an opportunity to cover a poet here in the Bronx who starts a literary club and just expands on that. The smaller stories, or like we were speaking a little bit before the show about the green
the Green Bronx Machine.
Right. For example, at DeWitt Clinton, their hydroponic gardening that goes on.
You know, listen, you're preaching to the choir, because those are the kinds of things that obviously motivate me as well. And what better place than to do that in the borough of the Bronx? Because as you know, and a lot of people know, you walk down your block and you could write 150 stories as everywhere you turn. But I want to talk about something that you covered about a building in Fordham. And this is the kind of thing we have in the Bronx, and it's people, frankly, like you, who write about it, and then maybe it can make some change. People were coming through the winter and they still have no heat. They still have no gas. I mean, it's like, talk to the hand already. It's enough.
Unfortunately, Gary, I called one of my sources in the building this just a few hours ago, and still no gas from Con Edison. Now, this story that appeared on the cover, the latest edition of the Norwood News, it started, actually, we got wind of a situation, tenants without gas service, back in June. So it became this story where, well, Con Edison, we're almost there. We just need a little more time. Then the landlord, we're almost there, just give us a little more time. Then the Department of Buildings, we're almost there, give us a little more time. And so we kept waiting, hoping to publish a story with a good ending, a happy ending. But now it's going to be almost a year. So they needed this out there.
This makes me nauseous. Now this, you mentioned a landlord, so this is not public housing. This is a private landlord's building. Is this one of those landlords who's been on, I mean, you're welcome to name him or her, who's been on the list of the worst landlords in New York?
Now, that I don't know. I can't confirm.
Well, let's put him right on there because he is.
However, I'll give you the address, 2558 Grand Concourse.
Okay, it's in the Fordham section.
And it's next to the Ortiz Funeral Home.
Oh, okay. I know right where it is.
Just south of Poe Park.
Poe Park, yeah.
So that's a prominent address. It's not a building hidden somewhere in the
It does, which of course would never faze me. Wouldn't matter where it is. I mean, this is just not acceptable. Well, thanks for writing about that. I want to also talk about something we were just talking about before the show. this incredible event about women's suffrage that was at the Woodlawn Cemetery. We were both there working for our respective media. Why don't you talk a little bit about what it was and how incredible it was to literally watch these skydivers drop from the sky into Woodlawn Cemetery.
Not only were they skydivers, they were all women. A women's group that promotes women's rights, and on that day, celebrating 100 years of the passing of women's right to vote.
Right,
and
the
so,
19th Amendment.
Exactly, correct. And so obviously, or maybe not so obviously to some folks, Woodlawn Cemetery is the final resting place of quite a few women that played a role in the suffragette movement to get women the right to vote. So on that day, it was a wonderful, clear blue sky. The women actually jumped out from helicopters, actually, as I recall. And they had those smoke trails following them in these colors that were significant to the women's movement back then.
I got to tell you, by the way, I have a book here, one of the books, we didn't put it up yet, about Woodlawn Cemetery. It was unbelievable. I mean, I was there, and you're looking, you know, like, and you've been a reporter and you stand a photographer and you stand around, you wait for an event, and all of a sudden you saw them just, you know, this tiny dot dropping from the sky. You know, it was just absolutely extraordinary. Aside from that event, anything else that sticks in your mind that you've enjoyed covering here in the borough of the Bronx? Something that you say, wow, that was a really cool thing.
Well, there are.
There's so many, I'm sure.
Exactly. Everything, even from, we spoke briefly, the 30th anniversary, a year or two ago of the Norwood News,
Right.
to see how local media, local journalism is celebrated, appreciated, and helped to move forward, just like you've done for so long, Gary. It's so important. I like to echo these words from long ago, that all politics is local. And yes, we're in the midst of, they keep saying, the most important presidential election of our lifetimes. But, you know, here at the Norwood News, we're already covering election issues for 2021, which is our local elections.
Right. And it's going to be quite a year, because we're essentially turning over the, not quite the entire delegation, but a large part of the city council delegation in the Bronx. And it will be very interesting. Anyway, José Gerald from the Norwood News, thank you so much. Next time we're going to have you on, we want you to show some of the great photos that you've taken. Some of your favorite things, things that really mean a lot to you, and of course to us here on BronxNet, and of course to the people of the Bronx. Thank you for what you do. You're just one of the great people of the Bronx, one of the people we love having on the Bronx Buzz. And you will join me, I'm sure, in reminding people that Election Day is here. You can vote early, you can slip that in beforehand, or you get out on Election Day, but you got to fill out the little thing and vote. Make sure you vote. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you, Gary. Good seeing you.
Right. We'll see you around. Folks, that's all for the Bronx Buzz. What an enjoyable show this evening. And we will see you this week next on Bronx Talk. And our guest will be DA Darcel Clark, who will talk about guns and crime and all the related issues. So stay safe, wear your mask, don't forget to vote, and we'll see you around town. Good night.